Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez. Glenn, what was the top story for you today? Wait, I'm going to guess that it might be what you've been leading up to this entire week with Joe Biden.
It's a little selfish of me because it's not the biggest story in the country today, but it is a story that I think we should talk about.
Yeah, it's not the biggest story in the country today, but it should be.
Yeah, it should be.
And hopefully it will be soon.
Yeah.
You know.
Still.
This is a big one too, I think. Bernie Sanders has a new Medicare for All package.
Finally.
And I know, we were all looking forward to it. I mean, I really was looking forward to the details. We have them, and they are bizarre. I can't believe this is the United States of America.
Right. Mr. Jason Buttrell.
Julian Assange was arrested after 7 years, dragged out of the Ecuadorian embassy today in London. Depending on what side you're on this, people have some very hardcore opinions. I'm going to try and skirt around those and explain what actually is going on and what that means.
Good. All right. First, we want to thank our sponsor, American Financing.
American Financing is the place that you can go to get refinancing. If you have an adjustable mortgage now, you really need to refi and make sure you're out of an adjustable mortgage. The Fed looks like it's going to lower rates, but the Fed, could turn on a dime. And these are low rates right now, and you don't want those interest rates going up. You'll not be able to pay your house loan. Now, the other thing is, if you want to consolidate, they also do that. Or if it's your first loan, for a house or your next house, they can do that as well. These are great people, AmericanFinancing.net. They work for you. They don't work for the banks. Call 800-906-2440. It's AmericanFinancing.net.
All right, Glenn, you just did a really big chalkboard.
Biggest chalkboard we've done. Literally, that's the hardest story I think we've ever had to tell.
Yeah, I don't know if there's ever been more magnets on them.
Yeah.
maybe once or twice, but not much.
This is a story that two journalists have been working on for how many years? 3 years? 4 years? Joe Biden is the most corrupt vice president we've ever had. And that's saying something. We've had some pretty bad people in office. And he appears to be making a lot of money for his family. And, there's a myriad of scandals, but we concentrate on two. The first one we hit today. Next Monday, we're going to hit on China, which is much worse than this scandal. Mm-hmm. But it is obscene because it seems as though the vice president is using his connection, his muscle, to broker deals for his son, who has zero experience in these things. When you see what he did in China, he has no experience in that field. And he got a deal that even Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs don't have. And he is raking the money in. And Joe Biden is using the money of the United States, our tax dollars, and our credibility, the full faith and credit of the United States to enrich himself and his son. And it is obscene.
I just want to point out that there are laws to where, let's say, if you're a congressman or I think it's any elected official, you have to report the cash that your family makes. Meaning, if you're married, the extra money that you make and the money that your wife makes. But kids are excluded from that. Best friends, all of that, that's all excluded. Extended family, all of that. You don't have to report. So you would want to think, you would think after watching that show that you just did, why has no one talked about this? Why haven't there even his political opponents talked about this? Because I think that they've been all doing this for a long time. And it's like this gentleman's agreement. Hey, don't talk about this because we're all, we all got to do something after we get out of office.
I think that's true. I think if Joe Biden, there's no doubt in my mind that this happened. We have the paperwork, we have the bank records, we have audio, we have everything. And there's no doubt in my mind that this happened. I doubt anything will come from it because both the Republicans and the Democrats, I think, are doing things like this. I think the Clintons really were game changers and masterminds on how to get rich off of this system, and it's obscene. And my opinion is anybody who's involved in anything like this should go to jail.
What's crazy is in China, they actually have a word for people like Hunter Biden. They call them, I think, the princes of China, or the Chinese princes. Peter Schweizer talks about this in his book, was it Hidden Empires, Secret Empires? But over there, they all just kind of talk about it. And they're like, oh yeah, that's, the premier of whatever in the Communist Party. Some member of the Politburo's son. He runs around in a huge Bentley, and is living life, and he gets all these government contracts. But it's corruption there. They know the government's corrupt, and they know what's happening, whatever. Over here, basically, as what you just laid out, is the same thing as communist China.
This is why socialism always goes awry. Because it goes to the family and the friends of the corrupt officials. I mean, as you're saying in China, they know it. The people can't do anything about it because it's a government that is closed off to the people. So if you have connections, you get rich. If you don't have connections, you don't get rich. Tell me what Hunter Biden, what his skill was to be put on a Ukrainian gas company's board. What does he have? Because what they needed to do was send experts over to the Ukraine to be able to help them pull gas out of the ground in a more efficient manner and get it to market in a more efficient manner. I'm sorry, I don't see Hunter or his college roommate had any experience in any of those things. Why is he on the board other than I can help funnel money your way?
It reminds me, maybe it shouldn't, but it reminds me of the college scandal, a couple weeks ago, where, the university, people get their stars manipulating all that to get their kids into college. Do we really think that the rest of the country's kids are just not as smart as random movie star in Hollywood? Like all of their kids go to these universities. All the kids of these really crazy high-end executives, they all go to these universities. Do you really think they just, for some reason, are better at the SATs than the rest of our kids? No. Yeah. We know something's going on. Do you really think the people like Hunter Biden or any of the other friends of the Obamas, they're just more gifted than the rest of the world, and they can just have no experience and go out and get all these contracts? No. There's stuff going on. It's just no one's talking about it.
I don't have a problem with Chelsea Clinton getting a job at a hedge fund. I know, everybody knows why she's got that job. She has connections at a hedge fund. Okay, private industry, private money, blah, 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 blah. As long as there's no politics involved. Hunter Biden was in and around his father giving this country $1.8 billion. That $1.8 billion went to a corrupt oligarch and his corrupt bank, which happened to be the sister company of the corrupt oligarch that he was on the board of directors with. He knew where money was going. He should have known where money's on the board of directors. He's in with these some of the most violent and corrupt people of Ukraine. He's on the board. They're doing an investigation. The head, like their attorney general, is doing an investigation on that company, not the bank, the company that Hunter Biden and his friends are now on the board of directors. Joe Biden flies in and says, by the way, I've got $1 billion check, but unless you fire this prosecutor, I'm not going to give it to you. Well, they didn't have any choice at that time, so they fired him. What was that prosecutor working on? Investigating that natural gas company and the corruption inside of it. And the United States Embassy said there is no way that Joe Biden didn't know that's what he was working on, because the reports kept coming back, and his son was on the board.
Still, middle class Joe, it turns out, is an elitist. Who would have thought?
No, it's crazy. I mean, I think you're right. Part of this some of these things can be explained, right? At times there are.
It's not illegal.
Well,
really?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think if it is,
operating under the system.
No, here's what I am more disgusted with Joe than I am with Hunter. Now, Hunter was there, but here's where the disgusting part comes, and we should all be outraged. The full faith and credit of the United States of America. Why do countries hate us? Because we're duplicitous. We're duplicitous. I was with some of the biggest banking officials right after 2008. I was with heads of banks, and they were so embarrassed because their banks had just been over in China 6 months before lecturing them on how they needed to clean their banks up because it was a mess and they needed American standards. And we collapsed, and they were horrified at how embarrassed, because the Chinese, they said at the time, were laughing at them. And they didn't realize, I don't know if I believe this, but they didn't realize what they were laughing at. They were laughing because they knew the banks in America were corrupt. How can we send a vice president to a country, an ally of ours, somebody that we want to help, write a $1.8 billion check to keep the country afloat? They had to have that money to stay afloat. And what do? We have our vice president's son funnel that into corrupt banks, corrupt organizations with oligarchs, take some of that money himself and enrich himself off of that. And meanwhile, when they start to investigate, our vice president flies back into town and says, you stop this investigator right now or you don't get another dime. Oh my gosh, how they must hate us in Ukraine.
I think too that that's the real separation from your normal garden and variety corruption, right? Like, I mean, part of this starts with the company, right? So the reason why a Biden's son gets a job on a board of a company that he has no right having is because that's what they look for, right? Like when you're in Ukraine and there's two companies coming in trying to get your business, and one of them has the vice president's son on the board, well, you pick them. Mm-hmm. So that goes back earlier to the campaign. They're giving these jobs out. It reminds me of Theranos, the company that went out of business. They put people like Mattis on the board and Bill Clinton, huge people represented them, which gave them that air of credibility. If these companies coming into Ukraine and you're looking at them, well, I mean, they've got the vice president's son on the board, they must be good at this, right? It gives them that credibility. To me, it's that level, and at some level that's bad, and it's very corrupt. However, the idea that he would come over and get the guy fired who's investigating that company is way over the line. I mean, it goes way further than even normal garden variety corruption.
Wait until you see what happened with China, because this is chicken feed. This is chicken feed, and we're only covering 2 of the scandals. This is happening over and over and over again. When you see on Monday what he did in China, I mean, we should be ashamed of ourselves. We are sending over corrupt politicians, and we are doing dirty deals that there isn't a single person who is a citizen and a taxpayer that would be like, oh, well, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, quickly, there is very little precedent for someone like Biden actually getting in trouble for something like this, because, these guys get out of this stuff all the time. But there is precedent for turning these things around for future people. I mean, this is exactly with the same person, by the way, Peter Schweizer, what happened with the insider trading thing in Congress, where they were able to essentially trade on inside information and make lots and lots of money. Schweitzer pointed that out. It went bipartisan outrage about it, and they actually had to change the rules so they could no longer do it. I mean, there is occasional hope on this, but you're right. Like the law you're talking about where, kids are exempt from these things, it's obviously absurd. Mm-hmm. I mean, like there should be if you're going to have these laws that are going to restrict the wife, the other blood relatives, friends. Of course. I mean,
friends.
Seems blatantly obvious.
Yeah. If you missed that chalkboard special, you can, of course, watch it on Blaze TV. Is it going to be on YouTube?
Eventually it will be.
Okay.
It's on Blaze TV.
All right, so check it out on Blaze TV. Back in a minute.
I don't subscribe.
So you can't watch it then. How did you watch it earlier?
I subscribed to sitting in the chair over there watching it. I bought a season ticket.
All right, Bernie's new Medicare for All plan.
I'm so excited about it. Are
Very
you?
reasonable.
Oh God, it's going to be so cool. Bernie came out and announced his Medicare for All plan, and the details are actually interesting. Medicare for All, at this point in the Democratic Party, just means something good, right? Like that's all it means. It doesn't actually mean any particular policy. It just means good health care, right? That's.
Can we just say, doesn't it mean VA for all, basically?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. There are 5 levels of this, and it's interesting to watch how they developed. A couple of them we're very familiar with, and we have the 5 levels of crazy to go through here.
That's government for you. Yeah. Dante gave us 7 levels of hell. I know. We only get 5.
I almost wanted to add 2 more levels to this just to make it work. So we start off at the bottom. Like if you think of left-wing proposals for health care, Obamacare as passed is oddly enough, the most conservative idea that is possible, really, in their system right now. And you look at that as, okay, they've created these markets, and everyone has to get health care, and you go into these markets and you can buy these, gold, silver, and bronze plans. You remember all this nonsense we went through. Okay, so that's the very most conservative. As we go up the levels of crazy, the next craziest one is Obamacare with public option. This is the Obamacare that Obama ran on. Now, remember, when he ran, he said he wanted a public option. He also said he did not want an individual mandate, because that would be crazy. That would be like mandating that homeless people had homes. That's not going to solve anything. Remember that whole thing?
Yeah, I do.
But then he, of course, put it in. He never got the public option done. The public option basically is, okay, we have these Obamacare markets, and there's an option for people to go in there if they would like to choose that Obamacare option. That is, it's something that is expanding on what we currently have. The next level of crazy is something that is, I'm going to call it Medicare for those who want it. Okay, that's a brand of Medicare for all, but it's not the typical Medicare for all. Tim Kaine just proposed something that's on this road. He's calling it Medicare X. The basic idea is you can get your insurance from your employer. You can get your insurance from wherever you get it, but you always have Medicare there that you can opt into at any time. So you can, if you want to get Medicare, you can jump into it, but you can also keep your insurance. So it kind of is like, it's almost like Medicare for all that sits within our current system.
So is it kind of like Cobra, except you have to pay into it?
I don't know if that's exactly how to describe it.
Well, and I would want to know, does the change have to happen simultaneously, or can you have a gap in coverage?
Yeah, I mean, that's of course Cobra is obviously part of that as well. But exactly, because then you get into that point where, okay, I just got injured yesterday, now I'm going to sign up for Medicare for all.
Right.
Those things usually they have some way to defend against it, but it's never effective because they can say all they want. You can't sign up in these windows, but when people who are in real need wind up getting on the news about it, these laws change usually pretty quickly.
And that'll change.
Yeah. Well, eventually you have to ration it. Yeah.
When the government and the media are one, and the government has all of the health care, who's going to report on it? Who's going to care? Who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to call? Who are you going to protest?
Yeah.
And if the prices for healthcare are skyrocketing now just from the manipulation from Obamacare, imagine how bad it would get for Medicare that's always there. Or you can just use your private insurance. So that would make the prices so ungodly high that eventually they'd get what they want anyway. All private insurance would just go away. They'd all go under.
Plan, did you?
Yeah, all right. So the next one is Medicare for all. Now, this is what I would think most people think of when you think of Medicare for all. Medicare for all is you no longer have your insurance at all. You do not have your private insurance from your employer. You are now off of that. You are on government insurance. Now, the idea that this is free healthcare, and Jason and I talked about this a little bit earlier, it is not free healthcare when you have the Medicare tax coming out of your check every single week, just like right now your healthcare comes out of your check. Like it's not
and it will go up.
And it's going to go up and up and up. It's going to cost you thousands of dollars every month.
Yeah, can I just weigh in on for the NHS in the UK? I was just going through with a guy that's from Scotland here in the building, and we were just kind of going through how much it actually costs. So basically, if you're a middle income family, it's anywhere between $500 and $800 every freaking month. So $500 to $800 depending on what you actually make. So every single month, let's say it's $500. Let's go to low end. Every single month, you could probably find cheaper insurance way under $500 a month here, right? Like
No.
I've always had government,
Depends, you get- I mean,
it's not as easy as you would think. I will say the prices have gone up.
It used to.
Yeah,
It
right.
used to.
Absolutely. It used to
before
be.
pre-Obamacare.
I would say pre-Obamacare, right before Obamacare was enacted, my average group was like $300 to $350 per person.
Yeah.
What's it now?
Sometimes $500, $600.
So exactly the same care that you could get from a private company, and it's completely your choice. You would, instead of paying them, you'd pay the government. Calling this free healthcare is the most ridiculous lie
and you
ever.
don't have an employer to help offset those costs.
Right.
Right? It's on you.
Exactly. So
No. Oh, they will tax the employers too.
Oh yeah.
Well, yes.
So, I mean, what will happen
But I'm not receiving the benefit of that. The government is.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Right now, I pay into it, you pay some copay,
Right.
and together we hit it. But now you'll pay full boat, I'll pay full boat, and the company will pay full boat.
So this can get confusing, but Medicare for All is your traditional single-payer system. We all funnel taxes to the government. The government pays every one of our medical care bills. Everywhere you go, you may have a copay potentially, but generally speaking, your care is free when you're at the doctor's, right? And you're not paying a monthly bill. You're just paying taxes, which is, to me, the exact same freaking thing. That is not what Bernie Sanders has proposed. So we go to the next level of crazy, which is Medicare for insane senators from Vermont. And this is a different proposal completely. So I posed this question to Glenn earlier. If Medicare for All were to pass and everyone was required to dump their good insurance from their private industry and go to a Medicare for All, if it's mediocre, if it's not so great, what does an evil rich guy like Glenn Beck do? He gets concierge care, right? He goes and he just uses his money to buy the service from the good doctors. He'll have to still pay the taxes, but he'll just pay above and beyond and get really good care.
Wait. I do that already, only because it's not worth it to me to pay, except for catastrophic. Just pay for it. Okay, I don't have to have insurance because
And that's the way insurance is supposed to operate, by the way.
Correct. So I pay for it unless it's catastrophic. And I can get good rates and everything else. I can afford that. Most people can't. But that actually helps the system. It actually helps the doctors.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I'm paying them cash.
Yeah, no, there's a huge benefit
No
there.
paperwork for them.
Now, when so Bernie Sanders is saying that under Bernie Sanders' plan, the idea of having concierge care or paying above and beyond is actually going to be illegal. You would not be able to go and spend money on private insurance above and beyond what you're already spending.
Wow.
This is incredible.
This is Venezuela.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
It really is.
Yeah, it's Venezuela.
It is super far because again, like now everyone's come to his Medicare for All position that he had in 2013 with no co-sponsors. He's got to move further left. He's now to the point of saying within 4 years he would make private insurance and private medical care illegal. Now, Canada had a situation like this. This was a Canadian system, and they ruled in the Supreme Court that it was unconstitutional. For Canada, it was unconstitutional because they said access to a waiting list is not access to health care. That's how bad it was.
Even the NHS, the flagship of all universal healthcare systems, you can still get that type of coverage from there.
Even in France, people pay all these exorbitant rates to the government, these huge taxes, so they could have Medicare for All in their version of it. And yet, everybody has to also have private insurance because this just doesn't cover stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always an additional thing you can add on to this, but this would be one of the things where you'd have to leave the country to get care that wasn't government sponsored.
And where are you going?
And where are you going?
Where are you going to
people
go?
used to come here for that. Where do we go?
Switzerland?
Back in a minute.
That's unbelievable.
America, I'm telling you, we're 3 years from done. Corrupt, Joe Biden.
Hey, I have a funny joke for you guys.
Okay.
Do you remember when we talked about death panels?
Oh, yeah.
And everyone said
That was silly.
wasn't that crazy?
That was
Do you remember?
funny.
That was a fun time
That will
when
never
they
happen.
laughed it off.
Oh, my
my gosh, Republicans are so stupid.
And when they
think we're gonna
said
have death
single payer,
panels.
remember they were saying that we were racist because we kept bringing up single payer health care, like that's a racist position or something like that. Now they all hold it.
And when we said that you wouldn't be able to keep any of your insurance eventually, that you wouldn't be able to keep it with Obamacare, and eventually they would wipe out all insurance and it would all go through the government. Oh man, those were crazy.
So funny.
So racist.
And just the other day, I remember reading NHS is not treating patients with cataracts,
Wow.
and they're going blind waiting for service. But this won't be like that.
No. Now that was like North Korea. That's what that usually
just the
happened.
old
Well, at least the
They're not
rich
as used
people.
to it.
At least the rich people will
If
be
you
able to
have
get
a
private
Cadillac
care
in your
there.
eye, what do you have here? Why are you parking your car in your eye?
That rich? That's